from then? I said, I'm from Denmark. He went, Denmark? He said, football club, he said, they got one of them Denmark footballers. He said, do you know him, like? I said, oh, no. I said, I've never heard of him. Never mind, he said, I've heard he's fucking crap anyway. How it all started off. I mean, I always tell people say, well, why did you say, I said what I did because I didn't know how they were going to react. It could have been Evertonian or whatever. But I loved the place from that moment on. And I actually stayed, I was mentioned before, 12 years. You know, I am still the longest serving foreign player at any British club. Wow. Sammy, we were talking about Sammy Hippier before, and Sammy was getting very close to breaking my record. So
you sold
send them
yeah, I recommended him to Liverpool. A couple of things I also did while I was at Liverpool for the 12 years. I still hold the record for the most scored penalties in the history of
Yes, you do.
The guy, I don't know if you had him here last year or 2 years ago, he's second in that list. Phil Neal.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He scored 41 penalties and I scored 42 penalties. So Phil is definitely not going to beat me. Now, I also...
how many did you miss? 4.
I never missed any. They were saved. They are some of the most high-profile penalty saves ever. By people like Paul Godden and Martin Hodge. They just roll off your tongue, don't they? I also actually scored a hat-trick of penalties, which is quite unique, isn't it? I mean, not many people score a hat-trick of penalties. And again, I was the first one in top-flight football to Britain to actually score that. And it happened in 1986 at Anfield again. It was against Coventry City. And there's a guy down at the bottom of the bar there. We have discussed that he needs a life and a wife, but he actually has the programme where 4 days I scored 4 penalties against Coventry. And the goalkeeper at the time was a guy called Steve O'Grisovich. Now for the Steve O'Grisovich used to be at Liverpool. Never played in the first team, but he nevertheless he was at Liverpool. So we get to this cup game on a Wednesday. We get 3 penalties in the cup ends, all given away by the same guy. Now that wouldn't happen today, would it? Today, if you give away 3 penalties, well, I think you'd be in jail. You never mind. This guy never even got booked. The guy, Steve Ceci later went on to play for Tottenham Hotspur. But as I said, about 3 penalties. I put all 3 penalties in the same corner, bottom left, goalkeeper, dive to the right every time. On a Saturday, we play Coventry City in a league game. After 27 minutes, we get a penalty. I step up. Instead of diving to his right, this time he dives to his left, so I put the ball to his right.
As you do.
Come into the bar after, and Steve is at the bar on his own, which you would expect. So I better go and have a little chat, and I walked over and he went, I said, well, what's the problem? He said, well, he says, 4 penalties in a week. He said, you've sent me the wrong way. I said, I'm pretty depressed, He said, but you're not going to believe what happened, he said. When we got to Anfield today, the manager, George Sillett, said, listen, the 3 penalties on Wednesday, he said, I'm not sure you were trying as hard as you could to Steve. I thought you were diving out the way. He said, so today, if Liverpool get a penalty, we're going to have a vote on what way you're going to dive. Now in those days, you'd have the 11 players to start, 1 substitute, and the managers. There was 13 people voted. And 7 people voted for him to dive to his left, and 6 voted for him to dive to his right. So when we got 7 minutes, now I'm unaware of this, but obviously Steve knows. And I said to you before, my penalty technique was, there's 2 things that don't move when you take a penalty. One of them is the ball, and the other one's the goal. The only thing that moves is the goalkeeper. So I would always look at the goalkeeper, and once he moved, I'll go the other way. But because Steve had already been told that he was going to go to his left by the vote in the dressing room, he moved that early. You know, I just couldn't go wrong, you know. And I'm just rolling in the other corner. And while Steve was telling this story, and I'm having a real laugh, I can't believe it. You know. His manager, George Sillen, walked into the bar, and you can see the two of us having a right laugh at the bar. 4 penalties in a week, and he just went, "Fucking you." Great time though, played there under 4 managers. Joe Fagan signed me. Joe was very kind. Joe said when he retired he thought it was the best £175,000 he ever spent when he bought me across. Then Kenny Dalglish, who I consider to be, from my own point of view, the most influential manager. Kenny saw things in me that Joe didn't. I think if Joe would have stayed, I'd have probably left. Joe didn't fancy me as a player, but Kenny did. Then eventually Graham Souness came in. He was my manager for a couple of years, and then I finished off with Roy Evans. Which is very unusual to be at Liverpool for 12 years and have as many managers as I did, you know, because we do have a history of keeping managers for as long as we can get away with. And no, but it's kind of we're at that stage now again, isn't it? You know, with Raff, and some people are saying maybe it's time, and other people are saying no, we need to get more money and whatever. You know, we've been at those crossroads for 19 years now, haven't we? Since, yeah, but that's just the way it is, isn't it? You know, and it's when you don't get it right. Pressure comes from everywhere, doesn't it? And for 25 years, Liverpool got everything right, didn't it? Yeah. I mean, playing for Liverpool in my first 6 years, and we never signed any bad players. We just signed good players. Craig Johnson, I'm sure you remember Craig Johnson.
Yes, Predator.
Predator group, yeah. He also co-wrote the Anfield rap, which is the greatest football song ever.
Greatest song ever.
And also, some of you might not know this, but Craig Johnson also invented, you know, the fridge in a hotel bar, when the moment you move something, it registers downstairs. Craig also invented that fridge. Exactly, yeah. And do you know why? Because you know when we used to travel around the world, or around Europe, play games or whatever, the last thing you did before you left your room, the whole minibar would go in your bag, wouldn't it? And then when you get downstairs to check out, it'd go, did you have anything out of your minibar? Go, no. And Craig has obviously picked up on this over the years, so he decided to invent this thing, so I don't think we should thank him for that.
No, he
Cost us a few quid over the years. So, why was he talking about Craig Johnson anyway?
Bad players. Bad players. Johnson.
No, actually, when I was talking about good players, Craig Johnson writes in his book that the most satisfying moment he had in his life would be on a Tuesday morning at Melwood, the training ground, when we were playing one-touch football for 25 minutes. He said that he couldn't believe that he could be part of that, because Craig, God bless him, I mean, was a limited footballer. He was a hard-working footballer, but he wasn't one of the greatest, most talented players we've ever had, but he was a hard-working player, and he couldn't believe that he could take part. You know, and for 6 years, it was a true honour. I used to look around and say, you know, when Liverpool come calling, and you go, this is an honour, because Liverpool only signed good players. And that's kind of, Souness did a lot of damage to that philosophy of only signing good players. I have to say, and that really disappointed me, you know, because everything that we did for 25 years, it's kind of been diluted a little bit. You know? Now, the things that we did for 25 years is why you support us, most of you. I guess one or two you might have jumped on after 2005, which was no, but it was an incredible experience, isn't it? You know, if you don't support an English team or a British football team at that time, and you see that, then you fall in love with it, don't you? So, but nevertheless, has anyone got any questions?
Were you in Istanbul?
Was I in Istanbul? No, I wasn't. I've been to a wedding in Barbados, and people said, "Are you going to Istanbul?" I said, "I can't. I'm going to a wedding in Barbados." And they went, "Who goes to a wedding in Barbados when Liverpool playing in Champions League?" I went, "It was booked 14 months ago." I said, "I bet you didn't think 14 months ago." Because we thought that had gone that level. We thought that had gone for Liverpool.
You've seen the game, right?
Yeah, I've seen the goal. The game was incredible. It was incredible.
You said Cruyff was the greatest player you ever played with. Who was the greatest player you ever played against?
Yeah, the guy who said Cruyff was the greatest I've ever played with. Cruyff was the greatest I've ever played with, but there's also a whole host of other things, isn't it? I mean, if you go home and check, the 1982 European top scorer of the year was a guy called Wim Kief who played for Ajax. 83, that guy was Van Basten. That guy was Ian Rush. I didn't play with Robbie Fowler, John Aldridge. I mean, I was blessed to play with 5 of the greatest goal scorers
Modern times,
in the last 25 years. You know, it was and every one of them was different. Van Basten is difficult to judge because he had to retire to injury at 26. He could have potentially been the greatest of them all, but they were all different. The greatest goal scorer was